My Sinister Harry Potter crossover short story, Harry Potter and the Babylonian Deity. Chapter 6, Urban Legend. Year 2000. In the wizard world, rising up from an ill-humored sea, was an island. This island was not like how you imagined islands to be, sandy beaches with palm trees. The island technically was not an island at all, but a mountain that had been swallowed by the sea, leaving only its rocky peak exposed. As time passed, the sea encroached further and claimed more of the exposed land as its own. On the island, there was one structure. It was the closest thing the wizarding world had to a skyscraper. It was triangular and its walls were sleek. It once had been home to a mad wizard who had tortured and killed many muggles. Upon his death, it was abandoned for many years until the ministry decided to turn it into a prison to hold dangerous wizards and witches who broke the law. Azkaban's brooding architecture suited its dark history. Its appearance alone could strike terror in your heart. However, the place was a magnet for dementors who had been attracted to the evil committed by its original owner. No matter who had owned it or what purpose it served, it had always been a place of insanity, despair, and death. Cornelius Fudge strolled behind the hooded figure of the Dementor that was guiding him through the bowels of the prison, followed by two Aurors who had accompanied him. Like many of the inmates, he wished he was somewhere else but here. Unlike the inmates, he would be free to leave after his inspection. Not all the duties of the Prime Minister of Magic were enjoyable, but they were necessary. Many people didn't approve of using the Dementors as guards, considering it inhumane. Most people served small sentences for minor offenses, but they were often psychologically damaged when they were released. Some even died while in Azkaban, starving to death because they had lost the will to live. However, no other alternatives had ever been put into effect, and the Prime Minister made an annual visit to check the facilities and the general well-being of the prisoners. The Dementor was now leading him to the tower where the most dangerous criminals resided. These individuals were never going to leave Azkaban. All had received life sentences for heinous crimes that usually involved torture and murder. Most were Death Eaters. Cornelius Fudge felt a chill as the Dementor turned to face him, gesturing for him to enter. He hated staring into the faceless hood, and yet he got the idea he wouldn't like to see what was underneath. No one knew what the Dementors looked like. The only people who knew that were the ones who had received the Dementor's kiss, and they literally couldn't kiss and tell after such an experience. He stepped into the hall, wishing the Mentor had went first. Somehow he didn't mind following them as much as having them follow him. The Dementor glided soundlessly, but Fudge's footsteps echoed down the corridor. He stopped to peer inside the cells. On the lower levels, he hadn't usually seen much, a huddled figure in the darkness. The prisoners on the upper level, though, seemed to be the least affected by the Dementors. The first cell he peered into, he saw Rodolphus Lestrange bent over what looked like a game he had made from stones and twigs. He glanced up with hollowed eyes at the cell door, but he looked as unconcerned as if he were sitting in his own house. Fudge shook his head. The next cell held Rodolphus's wife Bellatrix, and she made the effort to greet the Prime Minister as he passed by. Her claw-like hands gripped the bars of the cell window, and she licked the bar in between. Fudge grimaced, remembering a time when she had been a stunningly beautiful woman. She had always been mad, of course, but there were plenty of mad people in the wizard world. Fudge held a great respect for many of the pure-blood families, even though he knew many of them had supported the Dark Lord. He didn't hold it against them. The Dark Lord, after all, had many good ideas. He was just a little extreme. Still, he always wondered what had happened to Bellatrix Lestrange. What had caused her to go down such a dark path? After all, her younger sister Narcissa had embraced the same ideals, and yet she had managed not to end up like this. "Good afternoon, Mrs. Lestrange," Fudge greeted her. "You seem to be holding up well." She gave him a mad smile and started laughing. "Oh, yes, I am doing marvelously well. You can tell all the enemies of the Dark Lord that Bellatrix Lestrange is doing just fine. She finds strength in the knowledge that the Dark Lord will rise again. She will be rewarded for her devotion, and all those who imprisoned her will pay with their lives." When she took a breath from her tirade, Fudge broke in. "It has been 13 years, Mrs. Lestrange, and there has been no sign of the Dark Lord. I think it is safe to assume he did not survive his attack on the Potters." "You lie," she whispered. "He still lives. He may be weakened, but he still lives. He has powers a pathetic wizard like yourself can never hope to achieve. He survived. You know he survived." Her whisper had become a scream. The Dementor, agitated by the sound, went up to the cell window, and Bellatrix jumped back as if the bars were hot. Fudge frowned. It was true, he had lied. There had been signs of the Dark Lord. 2 years ago, the Dark Lord had tried to steal the Sorcerer's Stone, but amazingly, he had been thwarted by 2 first-year students, Hermione Granger and Ronald Weasley. The year after that, the Chamber of Secrets had been opened. Again, the Dark Lord had been defeated by the heroic acts of Ronald Weasley, who had bravely gone to rescue his sister. Hermione Granger, though she had been petrified, had been credited for finding the Chamber of Secrets, and the Weasley twins had used her clues to find an alternate entrance into it, bypassing the need to know Parseltongue. Still, the Dark Lord, though thwarted, was still alive, and it was only a matter of time that he probably would find a way to come back into power. Fudge did all he could to squelch these stories so not to cause panic among the wizard citizens. It was the one area Dumbledore and he disagreed on. Dumbledore believed the people had the right to know, and they couldn't defend themselves properly and be vigilant if they were ignorant. Fudge believed that the citizens would merely become frightened and become a panicking stampede. What bothered him was how did Bellatrix Lestrange find out what had happened the last couple of years. Of course, the Malfoys had enough connections to be able to get a pass to visit their family in Azkaban if they desired to. However, as far as he knew, the Malfoys had severed ties with their imprisoned relatives. People had doubts about their claims of being under the Imperious curse, and visiting their relatives would strengthen people's suspicions. The Dementor took the lead. As he walked away, he heard Bellatrix Lestrange shout out after him, "What happened to Harry Potter, eh?"